The UES Valiant drifted silently in the emptiness of deep space. Its hull, once gleaming with the pride of human engineering, now showed patches of discoloration from decades of cosmic radiation. The old warship served as a border sentinel, stationed at the edge of human territory, where it met the Zeth-R Confederacy's domain. Inside the bridge, Commander Jack Harrison gazed at the stars through the main viewport. His weathered face reflected in the reinforced glass, lines etching his features from years of service. This assignment was meant to be his quiet path to retirement, babysitting an obsolete relic that the military couldn't be bothered to decommission properly. Commander, incoming transmission from Zeth-R diplomatic vessel, called out the young communications officer, Eric Powell. Harrison straightened his uniform and nodded. Put them through. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the elongated features of Ambassador Krulvor, his purple skin shimmering under the lights of his own vessel. Commander Harrison, the alien said, mandibles clicking softly, my delegation will be arriving for inspection in approximately 2 hours. We trust your facilities are prepared. We look forward to your visit, Ambassador, Harrison replied with practiced diplomacy. The screen went dark before he could say more. Harrison sighed. These diplomatic visits were becoming more frequent and more pointed. The Zeth-R made little effort to hide their amusement at humans maintaining such outdated technology at their borders. They're coming to mock us again, muttered Lieutenant Kate Walker, the tactical officer. I've served on 3 modern cruisers, and none of them get these diplomatic inspections every month. Harrison shrugged. Let them look. Let them laugh. Our orders are to maintain position and play nice. The bridge crew returned to their duties, monitoring systems that were generations behind what they trained on at the academy. The Valiant had been cutting edge 150 years ago, during humanity's first expansion era, when mankind first ventured beyond their solar system. Now it was practically a floating museum. Deep in the engineering section, Chief Engineer Olivia Martinez worked alone, her hands moving with practiced precision across control panels that few modern technicians would recognize. Unlike the rest of the crew, she didn't view her assignment to the Valiant as a career dead end. She had specifically requested it. Martinez wiped sweat from her brow as she finished recalibrating the quantum stabilizers, components that, according to official specifications, the Valiant shouldn't even possess. How are we looking, girl? She whispered to the ship, patting the metal bulkhead affectionately. Her diagnostic tablet showed green across all systems, both the visible ones and those hidden beneath layers of classification that even Commander Harrison knew nothing about. 2 hours later, the Zeth-R diplomatic shuttle docked with the Valiant. Ambassador Krulvor led a group of 5 officials through the airlock, their tall frames making the human corridors seem cramped. Commander Harrison, the ambassador said with a slight nod. Thank you for hosting us yet again. Harrison led the group on the standard tour. As always, the aliens made little effort to hide their disdain. Remarkable that you maintain such historical artifacts, said one official, running a 3-fingered hand along a corridor railing. Another snickered when they reached the weapons control room. Kinetic projectile launchers. My species abandoned such primitive technology before your people left their home planet. Commander Harrison maintained his professional smile, though his jaw tightened. They may not be fancy, but they're reliable. The tour concluded in the observation lounge, where refreshments had been prepared. Through the viewport, both humans and aliens could see the nearby border station, a modern facility that handled the actual diplomatic and trade matters between species. As Harrison watched the Zeth-R whisper among themselves, he caught Martinez's eye across the room. The engineer gave him a subtle wink. Neither of them knew that in less than 24 hours, the old relic they served on would reveal its true nature to a shocked galaxy. The Zeth-R delegation had barely departed when the proximity alarms began blaring throughout the UES Valiant. Commander Harrison rushed back to the bridge, sleep still in his eyes. It was 300 hours ship time. Report, he demanded, sliding into his command chair. Lieutenant Walker's fingers flew across her tactical console. Multiple unidentified vessels just dropped out of FTL. Sir, they're not broadcasting any recognition codes. On the main view screen, Harrison watched as a dozen sleek, predatory-looking ships appeared near the border station. Their hulls were dark with red accents, unlike any design in human or Zephyr records. Are those weapons ports? Harrison leaned forward, squinting at the image. His question was answered seconds later when the lead vessel fired a brilliant purple beam directly at the Zephyr diplomatic ship that had just left the Valiant. The beam cut through the vessel like it was paper, splitting it in two before secondary explosions consumed the wreckage. "My God," whispered Eric Powell from communications. They didn't even warn them." Before Harrison could respond, the unknown vessels turned their attention to the border station. Multiple beams lashed out, striking the station's outer rings. "Get me the station, now," Harrison ordered. The screen flickered to reveal Commander Sam Miller, the station's commanding officer. Smoke filled the background and alarms wailed. "Harrison, we're under attack by unknown hostiles," Miller shouted. "Our shields are failing, and we have no weapons to speak of. Mayday, mayday." "Hold on, Sam. We're moving to assist," Harrison replied, though he knew the Valiant's outdated weapons would be little help against ships that could slice through a modern Zephyr vessel so easily. No time. Data burst incoming. They identified themselves as the Vrakan Imperium before attacking. Said our presence is an affront to Thyr. The transmission cut off as another explosion rocked the station. Harrison turned to his helmsman. "Lieutenant Clark, bring us between those ships and the station." "Full impulse." "Sir," Clark questioned. "The Valiant can't possibly." "That's an order, Lieutenant. Those are civilians on that station." As the old warship moved into position, Harrison activated the ship-wide comm. "All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." In engineering, Olivia Martinez heard the announcement and made a decision. She pulled a small key from around her neck and inserted it into a hidden panel beneath her main console. The panel slid open, revealing an interface that hadn't been accessed in decades. "Sorry, Jack," she muttered. "Looks like retirement will have to wait." On the bridge, Powell called out, "Sir, the attackers are hailing us. Audio only." "Let's hear it," Harrison replied. A harsh, guttural voice filled the bridge. "Human vessel, you will power down and surrender. Your station is already crippled. Your presence in this sector is an insult to the Vrakan Imperium. Comply or be destroyed." Harrison's face hardened. "Open a channel." When Powell nodded, he continued, "This is Commander Jack Harrison of the United Earth Ship Valiant. We do not recognize your authority in this sector, and we will defend our people. Cease your attack immediately." Mocking laughter answered him. "A single obsolete human warship. Your vessel belongs in a museum, not a battlefield. Stand down, or we will demonstrate real power." 3 Vrakan ships broke formation, heading straight for the Valiant. "They're targeting us, sir," Walker reported, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "Weapons hot." Harrison gripped the arms of his chair. "Return fire. All weapons." The Valiant's conventional weapons systems sprang to life, launching a barrage that the alien vessels easily evaded. Down in engineering, Martinez finished her input sequence and pressed her palm against a scanner. A computerized voice spoke, one that hadn't been heard on the ship in generations. "Emergency protocols activated. Athene system coming online." Throughout the ship, hidden panels began to open as dormant systems awakened. The lights dimmed momentarily before returning brighter than before. As the first Vrakan energy beam raced toward the Valiant, Martinez whispered, "Show them what a real relic can do." The purple energy beam from the Vrakan ship struck the Valiant head-on. On the bridge, the crew braced for impact, expecting alarms, damage reports, and possibly explosive decompression. Instead, a shimmering field appeared milliseconds before contact, absorbing the attack completely. "What just happened?" Harrison asked, looking around at his equally confused bridge crew. Lieutenant Walker stared at her tactical display in disbelief. "Sir, we have shields. Powerful ones. But the Valiant doesn't have shield technology." Before Harrison could respond, the main view screen changed. A woman's face appeared, or rather, a digital representation of one. She had short, dark hair, bright blue eyes, and features that seemed to shift subtly, as if never fully settling on a single appearance. "Commander Harrison," the face said, "I am Advanced Tactical Hybrid Enhanced Neural Architecture, designation HFY. I have been activated due to combat conditions meeting emergency protocol thresholds." Harrison stood from his chair. "What is this? Who authorized AI integration on my ship?" "I am not a recent addition, Commander," HFY replied. "I have been part of the Valiant since its construction. Most of my systems were placed in dormancy following the Harmony Accords of 2276. That's nearly 150 years ago," Eric Powell whispered. The ship shuddered as two more Vraken weapons hit the shields. "Shield integrity at 97%, HFY reported calmly, analyzing enemy weapon signatures and adjusting countermeasures." The bridge doors slid open, and Olivia Martinez rushed in, slightly out of breath. Harrison turned to her immediately. "Chief, did you know about this?" Martinez nodded. "Yes, sir. I was assigned to the Valiant specifically to monitor dormant systems and activate them if needed. I'm sorry for the secrecy, but it was classified beyond your clearance level." Another hit rocked the ship. "Perhaps explanations can wait," HFY suggested. "The Vraken vessels are repositioning for a concentrated attack. I have brought weapons systems online." Harrison looked at the tactical display, which now showed completely different configurations than the outdated arrays he was familiar with. "What weapons?" "The Valiant has standard kinetic launchers and low-yield energy cannons." "Those are merely the visible systems, Commander," Martinez explained, moving to Walker's station. "May I?" Walker moved aside, and Martinez tapped a series of commands. The tactical display transformed, revealing weapon systems hidden beneath the ship's outer hull. Phase-shifted particle cannons, quantum disruption torpedoes, and temporal distortion fields, Martinez explained. Technology that was deemed too advanced and too dangerous for widespread deployment. On screen, the Vraken ships formed a new attack pattern, clearly not expecting the Valiant to withstand their first assault. "They still think we're defenseless," Harrison realized. "Lieutenant Walker, return to your station. Let's show them they're mistaken." Walker slid back into her seat, hands hovering over controls that hadn't been there minutes ago. "Target lead vessel's propulsion systems," Harrison ordered. "Let's disable rather than destroy if possible." "Targeting solutions provided," HFY announced as Walker's console lit up with new information. "Firing," Walker said, pressing the unfamiliar controls. From recessed ports along the Valiant's hull, brilliant blue-white beams lanced out, striking the lid Vraken ship with surgical precision. The alien vessel's engines immediately went dark, and it began drifting. The Vraken response was immediate and furious. All remaining ships opened fire simultaneously. "Brace for impact," Harrison called out. The barrage hit the Valiant's shields, which flared with rainbow-colored energy, but held firm. "Shield integrity at 89%, HFY reported, recalibrating to improve efficiency against their weapon frequency." Martinez turned to Harrison, her expression serious. "Commander, this is just the beginning. The Valiant was designed as a last-resort weapons platform. As HFY fully integrates with ship systems, more capabilities will come online." Harrison looked around at his crew, their faces a mixture of shock, fear, and growing determination. The obsolete Relic they had been assigned to was transforming before their eyes into something else entirely. "Chief," Harrison asked quietly, Exactly what kind of ship am I commanding? Martins met his gaze steadily. The kind that was never supposed to be awakened unless humanity faced an existential threat. The first and only prototype of the sleeping giant program. On the view screen, more Vraken ships appeared, responding to the unexpected resistance. Multiple new contacts. Lieutenant Walker reported as 5 more Vraken vessels appeared from FTL. They're taking up flanking positions. Harrison studied the tactical display, noticing how the enemy ships were spreading out to surround the Valiant. They're not retreating despite seeing what we can do, he observed. Either they're extremely confident or extremely desperate. Athena's digital face appeared on a secondary screen. Analysis of Vraken communications suggests both, Commander. They appear genuinely surprised by our capabilities, but also determined to take this sector. The ship's weapons officer, Lieutenant Daniel Wright, had been sitting in stunned silence since the battle began. Now he spoke up, looking at his newly transformed console. "Sir, I'm seeing targeting solutions I didn't input," he said. "It's like the ship is anticipating what I want to do." "That would be me, Lieutenant," HFY explained. "The weapons systems are designed to interface directly with the operator's intentions. Think of a target, and I can help you hit it." Wright raised an eyebrow, then focused on one of the Vraken ships that was moving to attack the wounded border station. Almost instantly, his console lit up with firing solutions. "That's incredible," he whispered. "Fire at will, Lieutenant," Harrison ordered. "Protect that station." Wright pressed the controls, and this time multiple weapon ports activated simultaneously. Streams of energy shot out from the Valiant, each striking with pinpoint accuracy. 3 Vraken ships had their weapons arrays disabled in seconds. Meanwhile, at the communication station, Lisa Chen, who had taken over from Powell during shift change, worked frantically to decode the Vraken transmissions. "Sir, I'm breaking through their encryption with HFY's help," she reported. They're confused. Apparently, they were told this sector was only guarded by an antique human warship with minimal capabilities. "They were right," Harrison replied grimly. "Until about 20 minutes ago." Chen continued listening through her earpiece. "Commander, they're saying something about this being Sector 17. It seems specifically targeted. This wasn't a random attack." Harrison frowned. They knew exactly what was here, or what they thought was here. The Vraken changed tactics, focusing their fire on a single point of the Valiant's shields. "Shield integrity dropping in Section 3, HFY announced. "Redistributing power." "Commander, I recommend a more aggressive posture." Harrison nodded. "Helm, bring us about." "Right, target their command vessels." The Valiant moved with surprising agility for its size, turning to face the concentration of Vraken ships. Wright didn't even need to touch his console. He simply focused on the lead ships, and the Valiant's weapons fired automatically. The resulting explosion was far more powerful than anyone expected. The targeted Vraken ship didn't just lose power or break apart. It seemed to fold in on itself before detonating in a flash of exotic particles. "What was that?" Harrison demanded. Martinez looked up from an engineering console she'd been monitoring. "Phase-shifted weapons, sir. They don't just damage the target. They temporarily alter the physical properties of matter they contact." The Vraken response was immediate. Half their fleet broke off the attack and retreated to a safer distance. The remainder pressed the assault with renewed desperation. "They're afraid," Chen said, still monitoring communications. "They're calling us." The translation is rough, but something like the deceiver or wolf in sheep's clothing. Harrison allowed himself a small smile. They expected an old dog and found a wolf instead. Wright continued the counterattack, his mind now working in concert with HFY's targeting systems. Each shot disabled rather than destroyed, following Harrison's orders to minimize casualties even as they defended themselves. "Sir," Chen called out, "I'm getting more information from their transmissions. They specifically targeted this sector because intelligence indicated only an obsolete human vessel guarded it. But there's something else. They mentioned valuable resources in the asteroid field beyond the station. Harrison exchanged glances with Martinez. They weren't just testing our defenses. They wanted whatever's in that field. More Vraken ships incoming, Walker warned. Much larger vessels this time. Martinez looked worried for the first time. Commander, the Valiant's power systems are straining. We weren't meant to sustain combat at this level for prolonged periods without the full activation sequence. What full activation sequence? Harrison asked. Before Martinez could answer, the bridge lights flickered as another barrage hit the shields. Shield integrity at 62% and falling, HFY reported. Reinforcements recommended. The siege. The Valiant shuddered as another volley from the Vraken fleet struck its shields. Commander Harrison gripped his chair to steady himself. What had begun as a simple border patrol had transformed into a desperate defense against an overwhelming alien force. Shields down to 47%, HFY reported, her digital face showing concern despite her artificial nature. Vraken reinforcements have created a complete encirclement pattern. The tactical display confirmed it. The Valiant and the damaged border station were surrounded by enemy vessels. The station itself hung in space, parts of its structure still burning from the initial attack. Any word from our distress call? Harrison asked Chen. Yes, sir. Fleet Command acknowledges receipt. Nearest battle group is 4 hours away at maximum speed. Harrison's face remained stoic, but his mind raced. 4 hours was an eternity in combat. Sir, Wright called from weapons. I'm detecting multiple transports launching from the station. Escape pods. The station's being evacuated, Walker added. They're heading straight into the crossfire. Harrison made a quick decision. Prioritize defending those escape pods. Wright, give them covering fire. Clark, position us between the pods and the heaviest concentration of Vraken ships. As the Valiant moved to shield the fleeing civilians, the ship's internal comm activated. Bridge, this is medical. We're receiving wounded from the station. Request additional personnel. Acknowledged, Harrison replied. Martinez, who can you spare from engineering? The chief engineer looked up from her console where she and HFY had been working frantically. I can send 2 techs up, but we're stretched thin trying to manage power distribution. The ship rocked again as a particularly powerful Vraken weapon struck the shields. Shields at 39%, HFY announced. Structural integrity holding, but power reserves are depleting faster than anticipated. In the medical bay, Dr. Nathan Green worked frantically to treat the wounded evacuees from the station. Beds filled quickly with burned and injured personnel. More coming in, shouted a medic as the doors slid open, revealing 2 crew members carrying a badly injured station officer. Green moved quickly to assess the new arrival. 3rd-degree plasma burns, possible internal injuries. Get me the regeneration unit. Back on the bridge, Harrison received a direct communication from the Vraken fleet. Putting it through, Chen said, her face grim. The main view screen changed to show an alien commander. The Vraken had a reptilian appearance, with scaled skin the color of burnished copper and vertical pupils in yellow eyes. Human vessel. The commander hissed. Your resistance is noted but futile. Our intelligence indicated this sector was guarded only by an antique relic, not a vessel of war. Nevertheless, you are outnumbered and will be overcome. Harrison kept his voice level. This antique relic has disabled 5 of your ships without destroying them. We can change that approach if necessary. The Vraken commander's scales darkened slightly, perhaps their version of anger. You delay the inevitable. This sector belongs to the Imperium. Surrender now, and your crew may be spared. This sector is recognized neutral territory under interstellar law, Harrison replied. Your unprovoked attack violates multiple treaties. Treaties with the weak have no meaning. The Vraken spat. You have 1 hour to surrender before we commence final assault. The transmission cut off abruptly. "Charming fellow," Harrison muttered. "Status report." Martinez looked up from her console, her face streaked with sweat. "Commander, we have a problem. The power core is reaching critical temperature. These weapon systems were never meant to operate continuously at this level." "Can we shut down non-essential systems?" Harrison asked. "Already have," Martinez replied. "But there's another option. Athena and I have been working on unlocking the final defensive protocols, the ones that would fully awaken the Valiant's true capabilities." Harrison moved closer, lowering his voice. "What's the catch?" "Two things," Martinez said grimly. "First, it requires authorization from the ship's commander. A conscious choice to use technology that was deemed too dangerous for standard deployment. Second, once activated, it can't be reversed. The Valiant will never go back to being the ship everyone thought it was." Athena's face appeared on a nearby screen. "Commander, my calculations show that without full activation, our chances of surviving until reinforcements arrive are less than 19%. Harrison looked at the tactical display, where dozens of enemy ships surrounded his lone vessel and the vulnerable station survivors. "What aren't you telling me about this technology, Chief?" he asked quietly. "Revelation." Harrison stared at the tactical display, watching as the Vraken ships tightened their formation around the Valiant. Less than 15 minutes remained before their ultimatum expired. "Tell me exactly what this full activation entails," he demanded, facing Martinez. The engineer took a deep breath. "The Valiant isn't just a warship, Commander. It's a prototype for technology that was developed during the Nexus crisis, when humanity nearly faced extinction." "I've read about the Nexus crisis," Lieutenant Walker interjected. "That was over a century ago. A cosmic anomaly that threatened to destroy Earth." Martinez nodded. "What the history books don't tell you is how close we came to the end. In desperation, Earth's nations pooled resources into Project Sleeping Giant. Vessels disguised as ordinary ships, but housing technology decades or even centuries ahead of their time. Athena's digital face appeared on the nearest screen. "I was the first of the planned as, Commander. When the crisis passed unexpectedly, the project was classified and hidden. The ships were placed at strategic locations throughout human space, disguised as outdated relics no one would look twice at. A dead man's switch for humanity," Harrison murmured, understanding dawning. "Insurance against extinction." "Exactly," Martinez confirmed. "But the technology involved. It bends physical laws in ways that many scientists believed were dangerous. Temporal distortion fields, matter state manipulation, consciousness-guided targeting systems." A notification chimed on Chen's console. "Sir, Vraken fleet is transmitting again." "On screen," Harrison ordered. The Vraken commander appeared, looking even more agitated than before. "Human vessel, our patience expires. Your reinforcements cannot arrive in time. We offer one final chance for surrender." Harrison stared at the alien, mind racing through options. "We're considering your terms. Request 1 hour to prepare our crew." The Vraken's scaled lips curled back. "Denied. You have 10 minutes. Then we will reduce your vessel to atoms." The screen went dark. "They're powering up weapons across their fleet," Wright reported. "Energy signatures suggest they're synchronizing for a simultaneous attack." Harrison turned back to Martinez. "If we activate these protocols, what happens exactly?" Martinez exchanged a glance with Athena before answering. "The ship transforms. Hidden systems fully deploy. The quantum core shifts to maximum output. And Athena gains direct control over certain combat functions. She becomes part of the ship itself." "The weapon you're not telling me about," Harrison pressed. "What is it?" The lights flickered as the Valiant's strange shields absorbed another hit. "It's called the Nexus Inverter," Athena answered when Martinez hesitated. "It creates a localized pocket of altered reality, a space where physical laws can be temporarily rewritten." "In practical terms," Harrison demanded. It can disable any technology within its radius without harming organic life, Martinez explained. Or it can do the opposite. The choice belongs to whoever activates it. The moral weight of such power wasn't lost on Harrison. A weapon that could wipe out an entire fleet while leaving ships intact, or spare the crews while destroying their vessels. Yes, HFY confirmed. That's why it was hidden. Such power should not be used lightly. Dr. Green's voice came through the comm. Bridge, medical. We've stabilized the station survivors, but we're out of critical supplies. If we take more wounded. His voice trailed off, the implication clear. Harrison looked around the bridge at his crew. They had been assigned to a forgotten outpost on an obsolete ship, the last posting before retirement or transfer. Now they stood as the only defense against an invading force. 7 minutes to Vraken deadline, Walker reported quietly. Harrison made his decision. Chief, begin the activation sequence. Martinez nodded grimly and moved to a newly revealed console. Commander authorization required. Place your hand on the scanner. Harrison did as instructed. The panel glowed blue, then green as it read his biometrics. Authorization accepted. HFY announced. Final activation sequence initiating. Throughout the ship, hidden compartments opened. Panels slid away, revealing technology that looked nothing like standard human engineering. The hull itself seemed to shift, molecular bonds realigning. "What's happening to my ship?" Harrison whispered. "She's becoming what she was always meant to be," Martinez replied, watching as transformed systems came online. "The ship we've served on was just a disguise." The Vraken fleet began moving into attack position, unaware of the metamorphosis occurring within the human vessel. The legend begins. The combined firepower of the Vraken fleet converged on the Valiant in a blinding flash of destructive energy. For a brief moment, the ship seemed to vanish entirely within the glow of weapons fire. On the bridge, Harrison felt a strange sensation, as if time itself had slowed. The command chair beneath him shifted, interfaces emerging to surround him like a cocoon of technology. Transformation complete, HFY announced, her voice now seeming to come from everywhere at once. Nexus inverter online and awaiting command parameters. The weapons fire that should have destroyed the Valiant instead hung suspended around the ship, caught in a shimmering field of distorted spacetime. "Incredible," Wright whispered, watching as enemy energy beams froze in place mere meters from the hull. "Commander," HFY prompted, "the inverter requires your guidance." Harrison felt a new presence in his mind. Not invasive, but supportive. A direct neural link to the ship's systems. He understood instantly that his intentions would shape the weapon's effect. He could destroy the entire Vraken fleet with a thought. He could disable their weapons. He could even alter the very fabric of reality around them. The power was intoxicating and terrifying. "Sir, what are your orders?" Walker asked, her voice seeming distant through Harrison's connection with the ship. Harrison closed his eyes, focusing his thoughts. He pictured the Vraken ships, their weapons, their drive systems, but not their crews. When he opened his eyes again, he spoke with quiet certainty. "Target weapons and propulsion only. We're not murderers." The Valiant responded instantly. From ports along its transformed hull, beams of pure white energy shot out, connecting with each Vraken vessel in turn. There were no explosions, no dramatic destruction, just a sudden silence as every enemy ship went dark. "Vraken fleet neutralize," Wright reported, sounding amazed. "All weapons and engines disabled. Life support systems remain functional." Harrison felt the neural connection receding as the inverter powered down. The bridge returned to something closer to normal, though clearly changed from what it had been hours ago. "What just happened?" Chen asked, looking around at the transformed ship. "We revealed our true nature," Martinez answered simply. On the main view screen, the Vraken ships drifted powerless, emergency lights blinking as their crews scrambled to understand what had hit them. "Open a channel to the Vraken command vessel," Harrison ordered. When the connection established, the alien commander appeared, illuminated only by emergency lighting. His scales had paled to an ashen gray. "What? What are you?" the Vraken demanded, fear evident in his voice. "We are humanity's guardians," Harrison replied calmly. "The technology you just witnessed is but one of many safeguards we've placed throughout our territory. You were not the first to test us, and you won't be the last." He let that sink in before continuing. "Your crews will survive. Rescue vessels will be dispatched to retrieve them once our reinforcements arrive. But know this: the next obsolete relic you encounter might not be as merciful." The Vraken commander stared in stunned silence before the transmission cut out. 6 hours later, the human battle group arrived to find the border secured and a fleet of disabled enemy vessels drifting harmlessly in space. Admiral Flynn boarded the Valiant, his face a mixture of shock and awe as he took in the transformed vessel. "Harrison, what the hell happened here?" Flynn demanded as he stepped onto the bridge. "Command received your distress call, then reports of an entire enemy fleet neutralized by a single border patrol ship." Harrison exchanged looks with Martinez before answering. "Admiral, I think you need to be briefed on Project Sleeping Giant." Flynn's eyes widened. "That's just a myth. A story told to new officers." "Not a myth, sir," Harrison replied, gesturing around at the advanced technology now visible throughout the bridge. "A contingency plan, hidden in plain sight." In the days that followed, the story spread despite official attempts to contain it. The tale of an ancient human warship, a forgotten relic that single-handedly defeated an alien armada, raced across the stars faster than any official report. On a dozen worlds, alien military strategists revised their assessments of human capabilities. Intelligence officers began examining every obsolete human vessel with new suspicion, and in remote sectors of space, other disguised guardians continued their silent vigil, waiting for the day they too might be awakened. 1 month later, Harrison stood on the observation deck of the Valiant, watching stars streak by as they patrolled a new sector. The ship had been officially recommissioned, its true nature acknowledged in classified records. "I notice you're asking for Part 8, but the story outline I created at the beginning had only 7 parts, which I've now completed. However, I'm happy to write an additional part that continues the story. Here's Part 8, The Aftermath." 6 months after the Vraken encounter, the UES Valiant had become both legend and controversy throughout human space. Harrison stood in the Grand Hall of the United Earth Defense Council, his dress uniform uncomfortable after months in the more practical attire of active duty. "Commander Harrison, please continue your testimony," said Counselor Yvette Foster, her stern expression revealing nothing of her thoughts. Harrison cleared his throat. "As I was saying, we have confirmed at least 12 other sleeping giant vessels positioned throughout our territory, each disguised as an obsolete ship on routine patrol." The council chambers buzzed with whispered conversations. Harrison glanced at Martinez, who sat in the witness area, her face carefully neutral. "And you believe these vessels should all be fully activated?" asked Counselor Ben Riley, leaning forward with obvious concern. "No, sir," Harrison replied firmly. "I believe they should remain exactly as they are, hidden guardians to be awakened only in true emergencies. The power they contain is substantial." Memories of the Nexus inverter flashed through Harrison's mind. The feeling of holding reality itself in his hands. It was not a sensation he wished to experience again without absolute necessity. "The Vraken have withdrawn all claims to the disputed sector," noted Admiral Flynn, who stood to Harrison's right. "Their diplomatic corps has contacted us 3 times seeking assurances that we don't plan to deploy more vessels like the Valiant." "And what assurances have we given them?" asked a counselor from the back. Flynn smiled thinly. "None, Counselor." In the observation gallery, Lieutenant Wright watched the proceedings with Lieutenant Walker beside him. After their experience, the crew of the Valiant had grown closer than most shipmates ever would. Do you think they'll decommission the other sleeping giants? Wright whispered. Walker shook her head slightly. No chance. Not after seeing what just one could do. Down on the council floor, Harrison continued. The technology aboard the Valiant represents both opportunity and risk. We've learned that the scientists who created Project Sleeping Giant understood this balance well. They didn't hide these ships out of fear or shame, but out of wisdom. Wisdom, questioned Counselor Foster, or distrust of their own government. Harrison met her gaze steadily. Perhaps both, Counselor. They created a failsafe that could only be activated by commanders in the field facing genuine threats. They built in ethical constraints and human judgment as the final authorization. They understood that power functions best with limitations. The council session continued for hours, debating the implications of the Sleeping Giant program and its future. Eventually, they reached their decision. 2 days later, Harrison stood on the Valiant's bridge as the ship prepared to depart Earth orbit. The vessel had been resupplied but otherwise left largely unaltered from its transformed state. Orders confirmed, Commander. Chen reported from communications. We're to resume border patrol in Sector 42, officially classified as a standard security deployment. Harrison nodded, settling into his command chair. In other words, right back where we started. An obsolete ship on a routine assignment. Martinez smiled from her station. With one key difference, everyone knows our name now. And that's exactly the point, Harrison realized. The Council understood. The power of the sleeping giants isn't just in their technology. It's in the uncertainty they create. Athena's face appeared on a nearby screen. A psychological deterrent. Enemies must now consider that any outdated human vessel might contain capabilities far beyond its appearance. How many shots do we have to fire to win a war? Harrison mused. Sometimes none, if the other side believes you can destroy them with a single shot. The Valiant's engines hummed to life, its advanced systems now working in harmony with the original framework of the old ship. As they pulled away from Earth, Harrison looked at his crew. No longer the forgotten officers assigned to a dead-end post, but guardians entrusted with one of humanity's most powerful secrets. Lieutenant Clark, set course for Sector 42, Harrison ordered. Course laid in, sir, the helmsman replied. ETA 3 days at standard cruise. Proceed, Harrison said, looking out at the stars. Let's go remind the galaxy that old relics still have their place.